Hello everyone and welcome to today's edition of Daf Yomi. Today's Daf is Shavuot 37 Omid A, and this is for the Refuah Shalema of Rus Bas Tova Gittel. Let's dive straight in. Rav Ahaba, Rav Huna, and Rav Shmuel, son of Rabba, Rav Hana, and Rav Yitzchak, son of Rav Yehuda, studied tractate Shavuot in the study hall of Rabba. Rav Kahana encountered them and inquired with regard to a matter in the Mishnah. He said to them, if one intentionally took a false oath on a deposit and witnesses forewarned him, Hisra'ah, forewarning, this legal content refers to a formal warning given to one who is about to perform a transgression. The forewarning must state that the act is prohibited and must describe the punishment that a violator would incur. Neither capital nor corporal punishment can be administered unless such a forewarning is given before the transgression and acknowledged by the transgressor, except in a case of very few transgressions, including incitement to idol worship and conspiring witnesses. Forewarnings serve several purposes. The primary goal is to inform and educate the potential sinner that he is about to violate a Torah prohibition, with the hope of staying his hand from sinning. The second function of the forewarning is to establish a sinner's state of mind. If witnesses later testify that they or someone else forewarned the accused to desist, the defendant will be unable to claim that he acted unwittingly or out of ignorance, and will be prosecuted and punished as one who acted intentionally. And what is halacha? It is the case that since the halacha of an oath and deposit is a novelty, as in the entire Torah we do not find another case where one who transgressed intentionally, La Ashkachan Mazid, Rashi points out that this case is not in fact unique. In 3 additional instances, an offering is brought for an intentional transgression. The guilt offering of one engaged in intercourse with an espoused maidservant, the guilt offering of a Nazarite who became impure, and the sliding scale offering brought for false oath of testimony. The false oath of testimony is not an additional instance because it incurs a sin offering, whereas the other 3 instances incur a guilt offering. The Chasam Sofer resolves the apparent difficulty by citing the opinion of Tosfot in 64b, that any matter that appears in the Torah 3 times or fewer is still considered a novelty. Brings an offering for atonement, but here he does bring an offering for transgression of prohibition intentionally. There is no difference whether witnesses forewarned him. One who intentionally took a false oath on a deposit, even if he was forewarned by witnesses, is not flogged. He does bring a guilt offering. This is in accordance with the explanation of the Midrash that Rav Kahana's question remains unresolved. Accordingly, the person is not flogged. Since lashes are not administered in cases where the halacha is uncertain, he does bring an offering, since that is mandated explicitly in the verse. The Rambam Sefer Flah, Shavuot 7:8, sees Lechem Mishnah there. And there is no difference whether they did not forewarn him, and he is liable to bring a guilt offering, though generally there is no offering brought when there was a forewarning. Or perhaps that matter of bringing a guilt offering when one intentionally takes a false oath applies only when they did not forewarn him, but when they forewarned him he is flogged, as this is the standard punishment for an intentional transgression, and he does not bring an offering. Or perhaps to impose both lashes and a guilt offering. Havaha Avdina. Although there is a principle that the Torah does not impose 2 penalties for the same act, an offering is not considered a penalty, to the Ritva and the Mahani Levi. They said to Rav Kahana, we learn in a Braita, the halachot of an oath on a deposit are more stringent than the halachot of an oath of testimony, as one is liable to receive lashes for intentionally taking a false oath on a deposit, and for unwittingly taking a false oath on a deposit one is liable to bring a guilt offering worth at least 2 silver shekels, whereas one who takes a false oath of testimony, whether intentionally or unwittingly, brings a sin offering. From the fact that the Braita states that for intentionally taking a false oath on a deposit one is liable to receive lashes, by inference it can be understood that the Braita is referring to a case where the witnesses forewarned him, as one cannot receive lashes without forewarning, as it is stating, yes, he is liable to receive lashes, but he is not liable to bring an offering. The Braita then resolves the question of Rav Kahana, and the Gemara elaborates. And what is the stringency in the fact that one who intentionally takes a false oath on the deposit receives lashes? It's due to the fact that the person prefers to bring an offering rather than to receive lashes. Rabba Isai said to the student of Rabba, you cannot answer the question from that Braita, as who is the Tana who taught that intentionally taking a false oath on the deposit is not subject to atonement? it is Rabbi Shimon, but according to the rabbis, he is liable to bring guilt offering as well as receiving lashes. Therefore, the question remains unanswered. And see the footnote. But according to the rabbis, he is liable to bring a guilt offering as well. Rav Kahana's question is based on the assumption that an intentional false oath on deposit warrants an offering, according to the opinion of the rabbis. Accordingly, one cannot cite a proof from the Braita, as it is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. Rav Kahana said to the students, apart from this, you cannot answer my question from this Braita, as I am the one who teaches this Braita, and this is how I teach it. An oath on a deposit is more stringent than an oath of testimony, since for taking a false oath on a deposit, either intentionally or unwittingly, one is liable to bring a guilt offering with the 2 silver shekels. And what is the stringency in this halacha? It is that there, with regard to an oath of testimony, he is liable to bring a sin offering that can be worth even 1/6 of 1 dinar, and here the guilt offering incurred for an oath on a deposit must be worth at least 2 silver shekels. The Gemara suggests, and let him derive an answer to his question from the version of the Braita, which indicates that one who intentionally takes the false oath on the deposit brings an offering and does not receive lashes. The Gemara responds, perhaps this is referring to a case where they did not forewarn him. Had he been forewarned, he would have been flogged. The Gemara presents a different version of the previous discussion. Come here an answer to the question of Rav Kahana from the Mishnah. One is not liable for taking a false oath on the deposit unwittingly, and what is he liable for when he intentionally takes a false oath? A guilt offering worth these 2 silver shekels. The Gemara explains, what is it not that the Mishnah is referring to a case where witnesses forewarned him, and the Mishnah nevertheless rules only that he must bring an offering? The Gemara rejects the proof. Here too the Mishnah is referring to a case where the witnesses did not forewarn him. Comment here. The Gemara continues to seek an answer to Rav Kahana's question. Comment here an answer from a Braita. After comparing the case of a Nazirite to one who takes an oath on a deposit, the Braita states, no, if you said that the halacha that Braita, say that again, no, if you said that the halacha that Braita discusses is true with regard to an impure Nazirite, who is indeed flogged for intentionally becoming impure, shall you say that this is the case with regard to one who took an oath on a deposit who is not flogged? The Gemara knows, now from the fact that the Braita states the Nazirite is flogged, by inference it can be understood that the Braita is referring to a case where witnesses forewarned him, as one is not liable to receive lashes without forewarning, and yet the Braita states, shall you say that this is the case with regard to one who took an oath on a deposit who is not flogged? One can infer, but he does bring a guilt offering. Avakaba may say, if he is exempt from receiving lashes, it can be assumed that he would be liable to bring an offering, since the underlying assumption of the entire discussion is according to the opinion of the rabbi, that one is always liable to bring an offering for intentionally taking a false oath on a deposit, as we stated in the verse. The only question is whether or not one is liable to receive lashes in addition to bringing an offering. The Gemara rejects the proof. What does the Braita mean when it states that he is not flogged? It means that he is not exempted through lashes alone, and he must also bring an offering. The Gemara asks, by inference, does this mean that an impure Nazirite is exempted through lashes alone? Isn't it written in the Torah explicitly with regard to him that there is a requirement to bring an offering? The Gemara responds, the offering brought by an impure Nazirite does not serve as an atonement. Rather, the Nazirite brings an offering in order to purify himself, so that his Nazirite can go into effect while he is in a state of purity. The offering must be brought even as the Nazirite becomes impure unwittingly. The sages said this matter before Rabbah. They relate to the question of Rav Kahana as to whether one who intentionally takes a false oath and was forewarned by witnesses is liable to bring an offering. Rabbah said to them, may one conclude by inference that in a case where they did not warn him, but there are witnesses to the fact that the defendant owes money to the claimant, he is liable to bring an offering. Is in this case merely a verbal denial that does not have any effect with regard to liability to pay, since there are witnesses who will testify that the defendant owes the claimant. His denial and false oath did not exempt him from payment, and he therefore should not be liable to bring a guilt offering for taking a false oath. The Gemara infers, evidently Rabbah holds that one who denies a monetary claim to which there are witnesses is exempt from bringing a guilt offering for taking a false oath, since the witnesses will testify to the validity of the claimant's claim, and the denial of the defendant is of no consequence. Rav Hanina said to Rabbah, a Braita is taught that supports your opinion. The verse states with regard to an oath denying a monetary claim and deal falsely therein, in Leviticus 5:22, it serves to exclude one who admits to the truth of the claim of one of a group of brothers, or to one of a group of partners. Murder the achan min hayachin, achin lo the achan min hashutafin. If one owed money to two partners, and one of the partners demanded the money and he denied it with a false oath, he is liable to bring a guilt offering for an oath on a deposit, since he denied a monetary claim. But if both partners demanded the money from him and he admitted to owing a full debt to one partner and denied owing the debt to the other, claiming that he borrowed from only one partner, he is exempt from bringing a guilt offering for an oath on a deposit, since the oath did not facilitate any reduction of his debt. He is liable to bring a sin offering for taking a false oath on an utterance. Shavuot 8:12. Even if he denies the claim to the rest of the brothers or partners, the same verse also says, and swear to a lie, which serves to exclude one who borrows money with a promissory note, or one who borrows money in the presence of witnesses. Evidently, one is not liable for taking a false oath concerning a monetary claim when there are witnesses who can testify to it. Rabbi said to him, and if your proof is because of that brighter, you have not supported us, since that brighter is referring to a case where the defendant says, I borrowed, but I did not borrow in the presence of witnesses, or he says, I borrowed, but I did not borrow it with a promissory note. Since this now is only with regard to the circumstances of the loan, and not to the actual debt, he is exempt from liability of taking the false oath. Rabbi elaborates, from where in the brighter is his explanation apparent? From the fact that it teaches that the verse, and deal falsely therein, serves to exclude one who admits to one of the brothers or to one of the partners. What are the circumstances of that case where one admits to one of the brothers? If we say that he admitted only the portion of the debt owed to that brother, then why is he exempt? Isn't there the denial of the claim of the other brother, which is denial of a monetary claim? Rather, it is not that the brother said to him, you borrowed from both of us, and he said to them, no, I borrowed all of the amount from only one of you, which is merely a verbal denial, as he admits that he owes the claimed amount and disputes only the circumstances of the debt. And since the first claim of the brighter is referring to a case of a verbal denial, the last was also referring to a verbal denial. Consequently, one can not cite a proof from this brighter. The Gemara attempts to prove that one who takes a false oath on a deposit is liable to bring an offering even when there are witnesses, and present them a number to remember the series of proofs. Liability sets of the homeowner stringent Nazarite. The Gemara suggests, come and hear a proof from the Mishnah. He is not liable for unwittingly taking a false oath by itself. And what is he liable for when he intentionally takes a false oath? He must bring a guilt offering with at least 2 silver shekels. The Gemara continues, what is it not referring to a case where he intentionally denies the claim of witnesses? And the Mishnah nevertheless teaches that he is liable to bring a guilt offering. And the Gemara rejects the proof. No, the Mishnah is referring to a case where there are no witnesses and he admits on his own that he intentionally took a false oath. Had there been witnesses, he would have been exempt from bringing an offering. The Gemara suggests, come and have proof from a Mishnah in 51b that discusses the note of testimony. If there are 2 sets of witnesses who took an oath of testimony, and the first set falsely denied knowledge of the matter, and then the second set falsely denied knowledge of the matter, both are liable, because the testimony can exist with either of them. The Gemara clarifies, granted the second set should be liable, since the first set already denied knowledge of the incident, and the validity of the claimant's monetary claim now depends upon the testimony. But why is the first set liable? Thank you for listening, and all the best. Bye.